Welcome to another great episode of the Contractor Business Builder Podcast. We have the honor of hosting Robert Murray. He is the CEO and co-founder of Intrigue Media. How are you doing today, Rob?
Very well. Thank you so much, Derek, for having me on. Pumped to do this.
Right on. Me too. So can you tell us who you are, what you do, and what's the idea behind Intrigue Media?
Yeah, for sure. So Intrigue Media has been around since 2007. We started off in digital out of homes. We put up flat screens in high traffic consumer environments to help be an alternative ad medium to say the local, what used to be newspaper and radio stations. We got dragged into online marketing in 2011-12 by all of our customers because they were having a hard time getting access or building websites, getting to the top of Google, figuring out how to use social media. And then in 2018, we started focusing on home improvement and construction services. We've niched even a bit more narrowly into landscaping specifically, but we have probably 130 clients, of which say 50 are in home improvement and construction services. Yep. And so we focus on lead generation for entrepreneurs, typically between 3 and 7 million that are going after high-end residential customers.
Very cool. Yeah. So you've been around the block. You've gone through this process with a lot of contractors. You know what works and what doesn't work. I think word of mouth is always the big thing for contractors is strong, and referrals and everything like that. And definitely any business doing, multiple millions in revenue is going to have some sort of social media or strategy and something like that. But what's the important aspect of embracing it for businesses? Like when they come to you and, maybe they're at 3 million, they want to get to 10 million. Yeah. What's the important mindset, or how do they need to approach that in order to grow through social media marketing, or online, digital marketing?
Yeah, no, that's cool. And a great question. So first and foremost, the mindset to your question is people often overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in a decade. And so very few people take a long-term approach to trying to build something that's going to be sustainable and predictable. A lot of people, when they come for looking for marketing help, they want results now. And the thing is, it's doable. It's just expensive. If I could give you results now cheaply, more people would do it to make it more expensive. That's just Porter's 5 forces. If there's profits to be made in a marketplace, more people will enter the marketplace. And a lot of people don't understand the economics of marketing. And so what I mean by that is that the value of the job is correlated to the cost to get the lead. So the more valuable the job, the more expensive the lead is to get. And it's supply demand. There are less people looking for $250,000 projects, and there's more people going after them. So competition is high, supply is low, the price goes up, right? And so there are some fundamental economics that apply to marketing that a lot of people don't consider. And so the first thing is, if you build it properly, and people in building should appreciate this, kind of approach. If you want to go high, you got to go wide and deep, right? If you're going to build anything of substance that's going to be a large building, you need to have a strong foundation. And that's the most important component. Foundations, when it comes to sales and marketing, are going to be a kick-ass website and a solid attribution/reporting piece with a CRM. So that is the most important component for anybody to have in place properly. And one of the things you said about word of mouth, which is really interesting. So we did a bunch of research on how people find companies. And without a doubt, word of mouth is number one for construction businesses, especially under 5 million. And it's still a massive driving force for people over 10. The interesting thing about a buyer journey, though, when it comes to word of mouth, is they say, "Hey, Derek, neighbor, I love what they did to your place. Who did the work on your place?" And you're like, "Derek," you're like, "Rob, it was these awesome XYZ construction guys. You check them out." You're like, "Cool, I will." So I Googled them. I find them online. The first thing I see is their Google reviews and their Google business profile. The second thing I see is their website. The third thing I see is their social media. So even word of mouth is going to go validate the referral online. Very, very few, if ever, does a word of mouth come via a third-party introduction. So Derek says, "Hey, Rob, XYZ Construction did my stuff. Let me send an email introducing you so that you guys can connect." That doesn't happen often, if ever, for some people. So we just have to recognize the path people take to find you. And the reason I say this is because word of mouth can overcome a bad website. Word of mouth can overcome no Google reviews. If it's a raving review and you see the work, the proof is in the pudding. But why put friction in the system? And then the other thing is this is technical, but viral coefficient, what's the propensity of a user to refer? Out of 10 people, how many of them refer? Out of 100, how many of them refer? So what is the viral coefficient? What is your word of mouth coefficient? Do you even know what it is, right? So a lot of people don't. That's fine. But the idea is, if you have a really strong Google business profile and you have a really strong website and you've got at least a timely, relevant social media feed, and for the record, I recommend one feed that's focused on more than many feeds that are haphazardly managed. And for the most part in the world today, I would just focus on Instagram. You're going to get more people reaching out that were referred to you because there's drop off. from word of mouth. And so we just want to limit the drop off. If we've done the good work, we've made a great customer relationship, let's take the friction out of the system, have a great Google business profile, lots of Google reviews, have a really great website, designed well, loads super fast, easy to understand what people do and what they should do when they get there, and have a relevant, social media feed that provides value and showcases the work that you do. This is pretty like bare bones fundamental stuff, but it can often be ignored because people say, I don't spend any money on marketing, not grow my business. It's like, okay, cool. That's fine. You don't have to. I'm not suggesting you have to. I'm just suggesting that if your average deal size is between $50,000 and $100,000, one extra job per year makes a pretty big difference. If you only have to invest, say, $40,000 or $50,000 to get all this stuff figured out. Yeah, that's the mindset piece around the long-term mentality, the economics of marketing, and understand the buyer paths.
Yeah, I love how succinct you were. And really a few things to unpack there was building consistency, sustainability. I like that thought of, just looking for a quick win to, boost a bunch of jobs now, because that's really not what builds great businesses or long-term businesses. Looking at getting that foundation, the fundamentals right and in place. And it's, like you said, it's not complicated. Nice websites, Google reviews, one social channel that's, at least somewhat active, and cover your bases, if you will. And very, very true, where even if you rely on referrals or you do great business and then, they refer you and word of mouth and stuff like that, those referrals are going to fall flat if they go and they can't, your website looks old, outdated, or it's not, representative of the work that you do. If you don't have any Google reviews, it's there's competition, like you mentioned, that if they ask one person for, who did their work, they're probably asking someone else. So you're still in a word of mouth competitive, landscape, if you will.
And we don't want to give somebody looking for you a reason to look somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And so if I come to your Google business profile and see 6 Google reviews, 4.1 rating, that's not a lot. It's just a little bit of doubt. So anyway, it's just the idea of taking friction out of the buying process.
Yeah. So I think that ties in a little bit with trust, right? Is people will trust the company, the owner, whoever, if they're more built out online, so to say. How do you look at trust in marketing and what?
The best way to get trust is just say, trust me.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I think trust is a really interesting point of view. Actually, I just did a session on how to get the most out of your leads over lunch today with a group of about 20 entrepreneurs. And we specifically talk about the idea of developing an environment of trust. And so the one thing you can't do is say, trust me, right? When I say to you, trust me, I elicit emotions that are associated to sleazy car salespeople. And not anything against car salespeople. They had a bad rap, and it's for a reason. So I just got a new ride, and man, there was a couple of experiences. I was like, this is stereotypical at its best. Anyway, so Zig Ziglar, if anybody's heard of him, Derek, you probably have. Timeless guy, right? Mentor and one of the best to Seth Godin. If people like you, they'll listen to you. If they trust you, they'll buy. The question then becomes, well, how do you build trust? And so there's a couple of things that we speak to very specifically when it comes to marketing and sales. So I'm going to speak more to marketing because that's just the nature of our podcast or the interview today. People trust people that are like them. And a very easy way to understand how this comes to life, maybe in your own experience or people listening to their experience, if you travel anywhere in the world and meet somebody that's from where you grew up, a level of trust increases for no reason outside of the fact that you're like them because you grew up near where they grew up. It's actually bananas. There's no reason to trust somebody for that reason. Zero. There's no logical approach to it whatsoever. Trust, however, is built in the limbic brain. It's an emotional response. So how do we build that on purpose? First and foremost, we use the foundational idea that people trust people like them. People trust people like them because they understand them. So we need to focus on understanding these people. So when it comes to marketing, how does that come to life? Well, this is where we get into like understanding customer profiles. People call them avatars, ideal client profile, ICPs, personas. There's a bunch of different names for understanding like the client you want to go after. And so this is like where we want to get a bit more focused. And we always talk about the idea that the riches are in the niches. The more focused we become, the more we become the choice, not a choice. However, there's a lot of opportunities to help understand a customer's problems better than they do by focusing on 1, 2, or 3 as opposed to everybody. If you look at a construction business who is like a full service renovation construction company, meaning they do kitchen, bath, basement, full reno, addition, you name it. Either they're kind of like, they've got something for everybody, right? They're a jack of all, master of none. If you got something for everybody, by definition, you have something for no one. And so what we try to do is help people understand how to niche down. You can niche down on customer type. So for example, you could niche down on like multi-million dollar like income type of person. So we're talking like CEOs, entrepreneurs, exited, like extremely high net worth individuals. They might have a very high level of service expectation. They want the best of the best quality, whatever. There's nuances to it. We might focus on the busy professional growing their career. We might focus on, a number of different types of customer segments depending on your business. We could focus on the type of property we want to work on. So we could focus on suburban neighborhoods. We could focus on estate properties. We could focus on urban environments, so like downtown areas. Those different properties have different issues and challenges that come along with building them. There's different permits, there's different codes, there's different nuances to space, equipment that's required to do the said work. Then you can also focus on the exact type of job that you do. So we got customer, property type, and the work that you do. So some people could be like kitchen and bath specialists. They could be basement specialists. They could be whole home renovation. That's all they do. They only do the whole home, whatever it might be for that person. Now, what happens when we start to get more focused is we start to understand through repetition, we recognize the patterns of problems people have before they work with us. And we understand the patterns of solutions that we have to create. So then we start to say, okay, well, like you live in downtown. Where are you right now?
Myself in Vancouver.
Yeah. So downtown Vancouver. Okay. Downtown Vancouver has a lot of really interesting issues when it comes to development and building in a downtown Vancouver environment. Not only is it elevated and hilly and weird and tight, the municipal government's actually really difficult to get building permits from. They're not necessarily pro-build, right? So as a construction person, I can say, do you live in downtown Vancouver and you want to do a construction or addition project? Well, I got your back. We know all the permits and all the issues. We have all the equipment to work on hills. We can get into tight spaces because we've done it time and time and time again. We are the downtown Vancouver construction experts. Now I go to that website versus I'm a full service construction company. We do everything for everybody. Who do I call first?
The one that aligns with the job that you have or the service that you need.
Exactly. So trust is built through demonstrating, which is the key term, demonstrating expertise. So if I outline the problems that you have better than the way you've outlined them, I build trust because you're like, oh, this person gets me. They get my stuff better than I do. I might want to talk to them. The other thing is give value. Understand that we're in competitive environments. Give away opportunities for people to make better decisions. If you follow us, Intrigue Media, at any level, Instagram, email, our website, podcast, whatever, we give all of this stuff away for free. Like everything I'm speaking to you about, Derek, we do for our clients. Like if somebody listens to this and does it on their own, all the power to them. If they try it doesn't work, or they're too busy, they want to hire us, great. But we give it all away. And we try to help clients do the same thing. People doing a renovation project, I'm just speaking in residential terms for the sake of the,
for sure.
Conversation.
Mm-hmm.
They're making a big decision one time, maybe twice. You do it every single day, all the time. You're an expert. You know this stuff better than they do. Help them make a good decision. What should they look for when hiring somebody? How should they read a proposal? What are the top 10 things that should be in every single proposal so that they don't get, the wool pulled over their eyes? If you can figure out how to bring them value as they're interacting with your business before they speak to you, you're going to build trust. And then the last thing I'll say about the whole thing is Google reviews, Google reviews, Google reviews. A third of all customers should leave you a Google review. Number one reason people don't leave a Google review is because they weren't asked. The number one reason they don't leave one once they're asked is because they don't know what to write. So 2 things, have a QR code on your phone when you're on the project, do the walkthrough, ask for a Google review immediately. And you can use vocabulary like, it would mean the world to us to get a Google review so that we can help somebody else like we helped you. It's very powerful vocabulary. The next piece is if you're going to do it via email, then we just send a link with a link directly to your Google reviews and just say that's simple. Please answer these 3 questions in your Google review. What service did we do for you? What city do you live in? What did you like about working with our company? It's easier for a person to answer a question than it is for just them to write a review. So again, there's a common denominator in our approach is take the friction out of the thing that you want to have happen, whether it's them buying from you or them giving you a Google review. But if all else is equal, one person's got 20 and one person's got 80 Google reviews, who do I talk to first?
Yeah, love that. A lot of depth there on trust and then actual tips and ways to go about it. So very cool. I love how you touched on niche. I think niche for a lot of contractors is hard to define. It's probably something they've heard about, but the mindset clicking of like, this will actually help you grow and remove roadblocks, not limit, the amount of people that you get is a little bit scary for some people, like if they've been the jack of all trades or they kind of do everything for anybody. But your marketing gets easier, your sales get easier, your operations on the system side get much easier because now you've got a standard type of client and it's a lot easier to provide amazing services to a specific person, area, location, service, whatever, than doing something for this guy, another thing for this person. Then you've got like a family over here or whatever, and you're retooling, retraining, doing everything.
Every customer is a Rubik's Cube.
Mm-hmm.
And then in this case, every customer is like a coat hanger. You're just manufacturing coat hangers. And it's way easier to be profitable manufacturing the same thing over again.
For sure. So what are some common mistakes you see contractors making with their marketing? What's some common mistakes that you see over and over again?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing in this, it's like one step before the niche thing, is they're always company focused and solution oriented. This is who we are. This is what we do. This is how we do it. This is how many years we've been in business. This is our team. This is our communication. This is the services we provide. And it sounds crass, but no one cares about you. Customers care only about one of two things: accomplishing goals, solving problems. So if we can address that and become customer focused and problem oriented, we can get a lot further with helping people inquire. And that's where the niche comes into play. And the other thing about niching, because if we understand, it's difficult to build content on a website, on social, in email, anywhere around the problems of a customer if we service all customers, because the problems aren't all the same. So if I try to say, we address all these different problems, it's just like this huge laundry list of every single problem that exists in the world. And what you said about people being a little afraid to niche, we hear all the time. However, I do want to mention something a little bit. First of all, you can have customer segments. So you don't have to niche to one to start. You can niche to 5 or 3. And you look internally and probably work with someone like you. Where are we making the most profitable? Like, where are we the most profitable in terms of jobs? Where are the customers the happiest? What do we love to do? That's like a Venn diagram, like the hedgehog concept, essentially, right? What's in the middle of where you make the most money, where the customer's the happiest, and what do you love to do? That's a good spot to build a customer segment. And then instead of on your website having services, you could have who we serve, and then you can have your segments listed. And then the segments, hopefully they see themselves, they pick the segment that they're in, and then you can speak about the problems of that segment. And so like we can go back to the area what we talked about, the multi-million net worth, entrepreneur, or, stock made it, lottery, whatever. Then you got, busy family, busy professional, building career person. And, there's different customer segments. You got different property types. You got different work that you specialize in. Maybe pick 3 to 5 to start with and get more focused. And then after a couple of years, do that analysis again, where are we most profitable, where we like doing the most work, and where our customers are happiest, and get more narrow. I think that idea of being jack of all, master of none is the biggest mistake people make. As you get bigger, you can be a master of more than one. So if you're a $10 million, $20 million company, you have different crews that specialize, no problem. But when you're at $1 million to $2 million, like getting focused, because then you have price control, because you become the expert, you can then build a relationship in the community around your expertise, and you become the go-to person for that thing. That's a big deal. I think the other thing is very few people, or a lot of people ignore, in any given market, only 3% is ready to buy. So out of 100 buyers, only 3 are ready to buy now. And a lot of entrepreneurs try to focus on getting that person to buy from them, and they forget about the 97% of the marketplace. So I'm a great example of this situation. I have a problem in that my kids are growing up and I'm in a bungalow with a walkout basement. So my house today is big enough, but tomorrow it won't. I want to put a second floor addition on my house and renovate it and punch out my garage and do a big thing. I'm not going to buy it this year. I might not buy it next year, but I'm going to in the next 2. But right now, when I'm researching this stuff, I can't find anybody locally helping me with content about how I should consider getting this right in my head. And so if we can build content about, like, are you thinking about putting an addition on your house in the next 2 years? Here are the common problems that happen with additions. Are you thinking about renovating a kitchen? Here's the top 10 things to consider with kitchens that nobody ever thinks about. You get me some resources from your company through the videos on YouTube, Instagram, Reels, blogs. I build a relationship with you when I'm at the top of the funnel where I've acknowledged my problem. I'm going to use you as a resource to get me to the middle of the funnel to find my solutions. And then guess what? I've been following you for a year. I'm probably going to talk to you first. So a lot of people ignore the 97% of the market. And I think that's something that people should consider, especially when you're in high ticket sales. Like, people don't make decisions right away. They enter the market, they're in it for like 2 years.
Yeah, I like what you say there. And for me, I think of that as like a nurture sort of process. You mentioned having some social media content. What are some other ways that contractors can keep those touch points and that information so that buyer is ready to move forward, in a year or 2 and calls them? What would be the strategy that you would pose for that?
So, I mean, there's a lot to it, so I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I'll kind of tease out a couple of like specific points. So first and foremost, you want to have a remarketing pixel for Meta and for Google on your website. You need to build helpful content via blogs and videos using YouTube or Instagram, stories, reels, or clips. You can build helpful content. And so what we typically do is try to help somebody figure out what a pillar piece of content is going to be. What's the thing the company wants to be all about? Then we write like a 3,000 to 5,000 word article about that thing. So in this case, it could be, urban residential renovations in Vancouver. Okay, so I write like a thesis, like a 5,000 word essay on everything you need to consider when doing a project in Vancouver. I then take that piece of content and I break it into 10 to 15 blog posts and 10 to 15 videos that are exactly like the blog post. I speak to the camera like I'm speaking to you, and I can use my phone. I don't need a huge production. Ideally, it comes from the owner or a key person inside the organization, and it's consistent. And you help people understand all the different problems around building in downtown Vancouver and how you help people get through them in 1, 2, 3, 5-minute clips. So now I've got myself on Instagram. I've got myself on YouTube. I've got this giant piece of content on my website. I've built out my website properly for SEO. It loads super fast, so Google sees me as an authority. I've got good Google reviews. I'm starting to rank. I've got blogs that are helpful. So when people Google stuff or ChatGPT search, because that's getting bigger and bigger by the day, we're looking at like almost 6% search share over North America, over Google.com, which is the biggest chunk of search share that's ever been taken from Google.com since it's existed. But it's a big deal and it's not going anywhere. Now I've created this net that people can find me when they're trying to figure out how to solve their problem. Now they found me when they've got some YouTube videos. They've come to my website. I'm retargeting them with other content. We use a lead magnet. So it's like download the number one way to read a proposal when renovating your house. All the tips and tricks to make sure you're getting a good proposal from a contractor, whether it's us or somebody else, doesn't matter. Now you got their email address, and now you put them into an email nurture sequence. And the email nurture sequence should always be value add. Here's a resource, here's a tip, here's a testimonial, here's a resource, here's a story, here's a case study. And a nurture sequence can be 6 emails over 12 months. It doesn't have to be like aggressive, just to kind of keep in touch. But that outlines broad strokes, kind of how to play that game.
Perfect. Thanks for breaking that down. And because the sales cycles in construction are very long, and like you said, it's a decision that people aren't making every day or even every year. Having that nurture sequence is so vitally important to consistency, which you also mentioned, earlier on. Browsing your website, you guys have a CRM that you utilize and offer to clients. Can you talk about some of the systems to make marketing or lead generation easier, take less time as it relates to the CRM or maybe other systems or processes that you've developed?
Yeah, for sure, man. And this is, again, another big mistake about measurement or lack thereof. What would be the average revenue of a listener and or a customer of Derek Eisen?
So average revenue for my clients, they would be similar to yourself, like maybe 1 to 10 million in that range.
Okay, great. So we're talking about owner, operator, entrepreneurs. Some are more involved than others in terms of their business, but they're still actively managing the company.
Yeah, on the 1 million, it's more or less the owner with a little bit of personnel, closer to 5 to 10. Then they've usually got managers in place, and they're more in the leadership only role. Yeah,
that's cool. So I'd say there's 2 things from a systems point of view that we need to discuss that are foundational. So we've talked about website and Google reviews. The next thing is reporting and CRM. So, and by CRM, I don't mean job costing and field service. A lot of great tools that have been built, like Builder Trend or Jobber or House Call Pro, which is more like maintenance and stuff like that. But there are a lot of really good tools that have been built specifically to understand your profitability and being able to like logistically deploy resources. And they are valuable. And I'm not saying anything otherwise. You should have them. You should use them. They're super important. That's how you know your numbers. That's how you make sure that you're profitable and that your actual to budgeted estimates are good. But very few of them have anything to do with sales and marketing. They like funnel management, lead nurturing, review management. These aren't necessarily the core focus of those tools. And so that's why we developed this CRM. We call it the landscape CRM because we typically work with landscapers. Yeah. And so the whole idea is like, how can we give people more visibility into lead flow, sales funnel, and opportunity management? And every time I'm doing this, and it might happen to somebody listening to this right now, but how often have you had somebody, inquire and then you follow up with them and it goes to ghost because you forgot to follow up with them again. And then you realize 2 weeks later, like, oh shit, yeah, I forgot. Derek reached out to me. I reached out back and I didn't hear back. I never followed up. I followed up 2 weeks later. Derek's already found somebody. So there's an issue with response time and response rigor. And there's some crazy stats about, like within the first five, if you don't respond to somebody within 5 minutes, or if you do respond to somebody within 5 minutes, they're 100 times more likely to be contacted from when they inquire. And 78% of people work with companies that contact them first. It's there's some really strong reasons why people should be responding to people immediately. Now, that's not necessarily CRM like solution, but it does suggest that there's an opportunity to have an office manager that's dedicated to lead response. The other thing is that, and this is where CRM comes into play, on average, a lead needs to be followed up 5 times for them to turn into a customer. And so few people that we meet have a system for follow-up that's like consistent and quick. And I'm talking like email, phone call, text today, email, phone call, text tomorrow, and then email, close the file, give them the outs. We have a whole bunch of scripts around how we do this, so it doesn't seem like we're just trying to like, work with us. Because we take a whole approach around, I want to make sure you're not feel like you're getting dropped through the crack. You're a valued, potential customer for our business. We would love to be able to help you if we're given the opportunity. Hey, I haven't heard back. Is this no longer a priority? Hey, Derek, it's been a couple of days. Last thing I want to do is become a pest. Just let me know if you don't want to do this anymore. Like, there's a way to make the vocabulary work in a way that's servant. So I'm not here to pressure you. I'm here to just make sure I'm going to take care of you. So that's a really important piece. And with a CRM in place, you can automate some of those workflows in terms of email sends. And that can be really advantageous, especially if lead flow kicks up, like certain periods of time where you're just like, you're on the tools, or you've got so many leads coming through, it's hard to keep up with. That kind of approach can be super valuable. The other thing is a tool we call Salt. It's a sales and lead tracking system, and it's a game changer for marketing and sales. So it's an attribution tool. So it'll tell you where every lead comes from: phone, chat, SMS, or form submission. What source, what medium they came from. Was it Google, Facebook, email, referral? What source? Was it Google cost per click? Was it organic search? Was it Google business profile? Was it ChatGPT? What keywords did they use? What campaigns did it come through? And did it turn into a quote, or did it turn into a sale? The cool thing with this system, the way it's been built, is it can sit on top or in between other systems. So you don't have to necessarily like fill out another thing. So it can like sync up to like different field service platforms. But then you can see without a shadow of a doubt how many leads are turning into revenue, how many quotes are turning into revenue, how many quotes aren't, how many calls are being missed. And you get to record all your calls so you can understand the voice of the customer. You can take all the transcripts from all your quotes that turn into deals. You can put them into ChatGPT, have it make a checklist of all the frequently asked questions. You can then train people with it. But that's a really valuable tool. So it's a sales and lead tracking system. Through us, it's like $1,500 a year, or no, $1,800 a year. I guess maybe through you, we'll call it 15. I think it's $150 a month if anybody was interested in doing it. But anyway, it's game changing. And it gets rid of the whole thing about like, you've probably heard this a lot, right? Sales is always like, marketing gives me a bunch of crap leads. Marketing's like, sales can't close a deal. And so they're like kind of at each other. Like there's this tension. This just kind of cuts through all that and lets people know like what's the real goods. So we can invest in what's working and stop investing in what's not.
Yeah, sounds like an amazing program. And there is like some incredible tools available out there, like you guys have developed, that can really just open people's eyes. And once you have those numbers and those systems in place, first it'll save you a bunch of time, make you more professional. But then you can see, like you said, do we have a marketing issue here? Where's the bottleneck? Where are we dropping the ball? Where should we double down on if we're investing in ads or different marketing avenues? Which clients, the best quality clients, where are they coming from, all that kind of stuff, right? You can get an idea of what's going on. So very cool. You've worked with a lot of different contractors, landscapers throughout your career. What's one that kind of stands out to you, where they started at, how you helped them, and where they're at now?
I mean, there's a bunch, but one kind of comes to mind because we started working with them earlier. His name's Morgan Ray from Bavarian Windows. I'll have to send him this one. Morgan, you rock. We started working with them. They're about 2.5 million. They're like north of 14, 15 million now. He's bought a couple of manufacturing businesses. He's made some partnerships. So he's taken over the world, one window and door at a time.
Awesome.
And it was a collaborative relationship though. Like he's probably one of the most visionary and conceptual entrepreneurs we've had the opportunity to work with over the years. And so he was always pushing us to be better, and for the most part, we did our best to level up. He wanted to get into Facebook when it was just starting. He understood the value of SEO and he just understood the value of leads. And he's just a consummate salesperson. So he always had a really good back end for any leads coming through on how to deal with the sales. But we had like conditional formatting and lead routing done through his website. So based on the value of the inquiry that would come through would get routed to junior or senior level reps. They built a solid CRM platform using Salesforce to like manage the entire workflow of all deals that came through, and just a really sophisticated cat. So from like video production on value-based things, like everything that I discussed with you, they've run the playbook on. Nice. And it worked. But it's also because, marketing, I got to say one thing before we wrap up, because I know we're almost out of time. One part of marketing is making the promise and getting the customer. The other part, which is, I would argue, maybe more important, is delivering the promise. And so like, you got to do good work and make good promises that can be fulfilled. That's probably the most important part of any marketing approach. Lining up what you're going to go say to the market with what you really are as authentically as possible. I think that's where things really win. And that's where he was really great at execution.
Yeah. Nice way to tie that all together. And looping back to your kind of original comments is that long-term view, and you overestimate maybe what you can do in a year, but underestimate in 10 years, and doing great work, setting that foundation, lifetime value of clients. It's not, you're not just looking for a one or done or get the lead and get a deposit and try to make a quick buck, right? You're building something sustainable for the future that's strong and that's truthful, in line, builds trust with your ideal clients. So people want to reach out to you, your company, your team, to learn more about what you do or get in with your content. What's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I mean, on Instagram, I am Intrigue Media. We have I am Landscape Growth podcast, where I interview entrepreneurs on the primary growth constraint holding entrepreneurs back. intriguemedia.com/podcasts. We have a bunch of resources and guides. If you just go to intriguemedia.com, in the main nav, there's resources. There's a bunch of guides, podcasts, blogs, events. If you want to learn more about like how we roll, that's a great spot to check it out.
Perfect. Right on. So check out the description. We'll put those links in the description of this video or audio, depending where you're checking it out from. Thanks so much, Robert. Any final word of advice or tip you want to tell our listeners?
No, I just appreciate the entrepreneurs out there listening to this thing. And, they're the crazy people that put their houses up for, mortgages to, grow a company and hire people in their communities and support local hospitals and sports teams. Entrepreneurs are the crazy people that jump off cliffs and learn how to build planes. So I just appreciate them. And we're here to serve whenever we can. If you ever want to reach out, I'm in one-on-one, whatever I can do to help. That's what we're here for.